Welcome back, friends, to another episode of Sit Crooked, Talk Straight. My name is Katie Myers.
And I'm Leanne Jameson.
And today we're going to give a shout out to our great grandmothers. I kind of in a not, right? Like,
Love it.
I didn't know my maternal grandmother. I definitely didn't know any greats on any side. But today just feels like a good day to like pay homage to and just be like, shout out to great grandma, right? Like what up, grandma? And have a little conversation about our ancestry on today's episode. What do you think?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So we're going to be talking about like lineage liberation, right? About the hows and the whys and the like what to do to heal ancestral wounds, to really like why is it even important? This is a topic that Katie and I chose because of how impactful it has been in our lives. She has had a more recent personal experience, right? And we've always had this knowing, right, that there's something so much more spiritually. I've always known, even since I was little, that like, so my great grandmother, you talk about great grandmothers, I loved her. She was always my guardian angel. She died when I was 13, and I spent a lot of time at my great grandparents' house and my grandparents and like, all that. Um, so knowing that she's always been there, right? But there's a knowing, there's like a cognitive knowing, and then there's like a soul, body, spiritual knowing. And
Oh,
that's what we're going to be talking about today. And maybe sometimes, right, like we always start with that understanding, the logical understanding um, of spirituality, or maybe it's not so logical, but again, it's like more of a cognitive, like awareness.
mm-hmm.
And then like how do you actually allow yourself to experience it, because that is like a wild opening up. That was my experience. That's when a lot of healing opened up to me, and deep running compassion. So again,
Mm-hmm.
we'll talk about like why is this important? How do you know that you've been called, right? And Katie was talking about just before we came on of like, when we have this call to heal generational traumas and patterns. But some of us are, I wanted to get even more down and dirt, like just down to the basics of how do you even know you're being called? Like, what does that even look like in your life?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Again, I always say it's like, I don't know if it's just like the groups that I run in that have always been like, this has been a topic, this has been a conversation, this has been in my, area. And I feel like it's more and more, it's becoming more and more understood, known. There's more awareness, more education around it with this rise of the feminine, and really this like embracing of the feminine. And there's so much. And again, I don't know if it's just the people I run with that they're all about education into even just embracing our witch heritage and understanding. And I remember seeing a book. Gosh, I wish I could remember what it was. I haven't read it yet. It's on my list, and they talk about. I was just reading like what it was about, and everything that we experience when we're going through this generational healing is truly like going into the depths to recognize, right, like all of the suffering that came before us, all of the progress that came before us, all of the um, physical, emotional, and spiritual fights that were fought in order to get us to this place where we currently are.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so that's really, I just remember I loved it when we were having that discussion, because that was a tipping point, that was a turning point for me in my healing and my belief in myself and my mission and my vision. Everything was anchored into that generational healing and the ancestral healing pattern that I
Mm-hmm.
went through in holotropic breath work, that my coach was guiding me through. And then I have an energetic healer who I still see, who she has taken me back to ancestral healing. um, because, well, let's just start with like why and how did we get there? Like, why did we seek this out? Or maybe it just sort of like fell into our awareness, right?
Yeah, and I think it kind of potato potato. It's kind of like the what, the why, the how, the regardless of how it comes to you, regardless of right, like if it's like a tap on the shoulder or like a full blown like shaking of your shoulders, right? Like because I've had both of those experiences where it's just been kind of like a soft, subtle like tap tap, like hey, I'm here, like there's something more that you need to look at. And then there's times where I feel like the universe grabs me by the shoulders and is just like, we're not fucking around, like get it together, like do
Together.
what you need to do. And so like I was kind of trying to find the language around because I have felt at times as though healing the generational wounds, I have felt like it is a burden because it is work. It is a responsibility. It takes effort. It is not for the faint of heart. But with most things that require energy, effort, work, time, resources, there's a major benefit, right? Like there's a major gift on the other side. And so, well, yes, I don't want it to sound negative calling it this burden, but if you yourself are kind of wondering, or you know that you are called to heal some of your generational wounds or the ancestral patterns of behavior and things that just have existed without being challenged for decades and decades and millennial and like all of the weight of that, you
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm talking about. Like if you're kind of like, oh my gosh, yes, like I have felt kind of like, okay, I've seen or I've heard the stories of what great 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 grandmother was like. I've heard what then my great grandmother, and then I've seen it in my grandmother, and I've experienced in my mother, and it has to stop with me. Like I can't continue, and that's kind of where my thought process of like, how do you know that you're being called? For me, it was a discomfort, a recognition of uh, lack of ease, lack of peace, lack of flow, like just a discomfort and a block of like, there's something that I see that's going on. I'm recognizing the pattern. If I don't do something different, nothing's going to change.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's behavior modification. I mean, it's all like behavior modification. When you think about like from the clinical and psychological realm, it's like what you nature versus nurture, what you see, what is modeled for you, you pick up, it becomes your familiar. And we as humans are designed to naturally go into what is familiar to us. So if
Mm-hmm.
mom was really cold and always at an arm's length distance and like not really warm and touchy, lovey, nurturing, that's all you'll know.
Right.
That is what you will likely repeat unless something else is introduced to you or you have the gift of recognizing like that's not how I want to be. Like my needs weren't met in this area, so I don't want to repeat that. I want to do things differently. And so it's behavior.
Yes.
We learn behaviors because they are taught to us and modeled to us from caregivers, other family members, society, the world, culture, all of those things. It's modeled for us. So monkey
Mm-hmm.
see, monkey do.
Absolutely. And I want to bring like a personal experience of like what really showed up for me and why I really started digging into these generational patterns. And I love that you identified like that's oftentimes what happens is like we start seeing patterns like, ah, fuck. Like, oh, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is what's blocking me. This is what's happening. And for me, one of the biggest ones when I was starting my business specifically, was this fear. I have a lot of strong women in my family. They are very assertive. They are like go getters. They are successful business owners and successful professional women. And what I saw though was so I did the same thing, right? I did the same. I climbed the corporate ladder. I did all the things um and it wasn't necessarily that. It was when I stepped into now part of the pattern too was this that the men in the family did not really work very much. My grandfather, so my great grandfather and my great grandmother, they started this business together. But my grandmother was the one, like my great grandmother was the one that like she had the idea, she created it, she knew, I mean, super awesome, super successful. My grandfather just sort of like, my great grandfather held back, like held, he was just like, whatever you need me to do, whatever. And then my grandfather, no, he retired at 40. He didn't do shit. He was an alcoholic. He was like whatever. Not
Uh-huh.
a very good person. And then my father was also, my mom was the breadwinner. My dad, there was like a lot of money issues and like all this stuff. So I found myself holding back energetically, showing up for my business, all these self sabotaging behaviors, because there was a deep seated fear that when I become successful, like I wasn't already, I mean, like that's the funny thing. It's just like I
Right.
already repeated these behaviors. I was already the breadwinner, I was already these things, but there was a deep, deep like fear that when my business takes off, my husband is going to quit his business or his job or whatever it is, and then it's all going to be put on me. And I was stopping myself from really moving forward. And it
Uh-huh.
created a lot of anger and hurt and pain, right? So that's like my that like I just remember it so clearly, because that's why I'm like I need to like stop like this
Mhm.
fear first of all, right? And not rely so much on like, okay, well, what if that does happen? Okay, then I'll make that decision, like we'll make decisions along the way. So that's where it was really diving into, but that was only after I felt the experience of
Mhm.
all of my ancestors through the holotropic breath work,
Mhm.
and saw, and I mean, I just remember just like floodgates opening, crying, so because I was holding on to so much anger. And it's funny because all the spiritual mentors that I've had, they're like, you have a lot of like, they're like, do you have any resentment towards Mary? I'm like, no, I hate men. I don't, I like, like it was like more of like this awareness, because that's what I knew, like you were saying,
Right.
right? That's what I was holding on to, is that men are assholes. They're like no good, whatever. And it was just so sad. Anyways, but there were like people in my life kept on bringing it. I'm like, okay, there's something here. So
Uh-huh.
really digging into even that, right? Of just like, how in the world do I have so many resentments towards the women in my life and all of that? So being able to heal that really has allowed me. First, my business is flourishing, my relationship is flourishing, my connection to myself, and
Mhm.
in even my mother, right? Like we have a very different relationship than we had before, and there was a lot of fear of healing that and
Mhm.
changing and transforming our current relationship, because I didn't know, or our past relationship, because I didn't know where that was going to go. So it's just so, yeah, it's just so powerful
Mhm.
to be able to embrace that. So like, how do you even like, so being able to recognize the benefits of just like so many different areas of your life flourishing, so many different areas of my life. Like I have made so many decisions based upon the feeling. I remember, I might be going off topic here, but like since doing all of the ancestral healing, it was so cool. I remember going to this venue, as I hold retreats. I went to this venue physically, and I walked around this corner. I felt such a feminine presence there. And I remember walking around this one corner. I was outside, and it was right on Niagara River. And I looked out, and I just felt my grandmother and my great grandmother, like my paternal grandmother, who I
Mhm.
hadn't like felt, seen anything in like forever, just like
Mhm.
come up beside me, and just like again tears, knowing that they're like there and supporting us, and like there's something so much bigger, and we have a whole fucking team of ancestors that are rooting us on, and really, really, like thinking about all of the struggles that they went through. Um, and again, not to be like, oh, like victim or anything like that, but just like
Mhm.
recognition of just like, thank you so much for paving the way for
Mhm.
me to be exactly where I'm at. Um, so yeah, I think that was a
Wow.
lot. Sorry.
No, thank you. I'm so grateful for your experience because, like you said, like your first kind of opening to this was, 6-ish years ago, and you have had uh, lots of opportunity and experiences and like recognition of like that energy or those presences or that um just that feeling, right? Like that awareness. Whereas I think for me, like, okay, so my first experience was 3 days ago when I was at a womb healing session and there were two women working on me. So it's like Reiki, I call it Reiki on steroids. The two women are working on me. So I can do simple math. Two women, two hands, four hands total, right? Four hands total. Except for there was this point where I felt a fifth hand. And when it was done, the first thing I said was like, all right, where'd the fifth hand come from? Because I felt pressure. I felt a hand that was not one of y'all's. And one of the women said, like, it was one of your um, ancestors. And I was like I was in that category of like, I know it to be real. I believe it to be true. I can cognitively wrap my head around kind of it. Um, but like there was an understanding and belief, but it was all like head up. Like it wasn't like in my personal experience, my like energetic connections, anything. And so when she said that, it just opened up all this stuff because I do have I'm going to call them interesting relationships with women in my family. And really, like, I don't have a lot of relationships with women in my family um, because they either I never knew them or they have passed and so just this awareness of the potential and kind of going back to the kind of why is this coming up? And I think for me, I am ready to take my growth to the next level. Like I am in a place where, not where I've become, I don't want to use the word complacent, although one could potentially use that word. I would say like I have been in a place of gratitude and comfort and healing that needed me to just kind of be where I was. And now I can feel it tugging at my heart. So again, kind of back to like, how do you know if like you feel frustration or discomfort or lack of ease in some area of your life and you are asking the question, how do I stop doing this thing? For me, it's what did I learn? What did my mother learn from her mother? What did my grandmother learn from her mother? What did my great, and it's not to point fingers or to place blame. This is so much more about people do the best they can with what they've got. And you got to remember like timing, right? Like we're talking like sometimes hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago where we didn't have access to the information that we have access to today. We didn't have the, at least like the therapeutic intervention like we know today or the language that we have today. And so like it's nobody's fault. I think that's important. And maybe I'm just saying that for my own benefit. Um, it's nobody's fault that these patterns exist. Yes, I can look back and be disappointed at certain patterns that have carried on and wished for different, but that doesn't really serve me very well.
Right.
It makes sense. It's valid, but is that where I want to stay? Not really.
Right.
So my work is to recognize what is it that I want to change? How do I want to be different? What do I want my son, which is so interesting to me because I have thought Sloane's 11 and I can remember praying before we even had fertility issues. I remember praying, dear God, don't give me a girl.
Wow.
Because my fear was I only know how to relate, connect with, parent, nurture in the way that I was parented and raised and nurtured. Um, and my mom and I have had a rocky relationship.
Yeah.
We are a million light years beyond and better than what we've ever been before. And so, like, I do believe, no offense, mom, like you can teach an old dog new tricks type thing. Like, I do believe that anyone is capable. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what your experience has been. Like, anyone can be capable of making change if they want to,
Right.
and if they're willing. Um, and so, yeah, like that, letting go of some of like the resentment, being open to, because I can remember you said this and it sticks with me even today, looking at the generational wounding and the traumas that have happened over the years, but also the generational gifts
Yes.
and the work that has been done and like that just always fell on deaf ears for me. It was just kind of like, yeah, okay, like cool for you, right? Like, I
Right.
love that for you. I love that for you. And like, again, no personal experience with that. And now, like, I'm the two healers that I was with this last weekend. They're like, you need to create an altar that is specific for your meetings with your ancestors, a safe space where you can call in, and they know that that is a safe space to enter into and get to know your ancestors.
Mhm.
And yeah, like I'm again, I have no idea what's on the other side of it, but guess what? I have never known what was going to be on the other side of any of the work that I've ever done. And I've never been disappointed. I've never been like, oh man, I wish I hadn't done
I
that
couldn't have
healing.
done that.
I wish I hadn't broke through that barrier of like generational patterns of trauma. Like I wish I hadn't, kind of like, I wish I never have I ever said, man, I wish I hadn't woken up this morning and gone to the gym. Like there's never any like regret when we do what's good for us. It might be hard while we're doing it, but the gift on the other side of it is kind of like, all right, like game on. It's worth it in some ways,
Absolutely.
but it is not for the faint of heart, and it is not a path that one should walk alone. And I would even dare say, I don't even know. I'm. I don't know if what I'm about to say is real. I'm gonna find out because I now feel like I'm on the path, but I don't even know if one can do this journey alone. Maybe you can, but I
I
don't.
haven't met anybody. I think everybody has always had a mentor, and I just, having this conversation again, it just like solidifies like, of course, I'm on the right path because I follow, right, all of the signs and everything. But everything that we're talking about, because it has been so impactful in my success, truly in all areas of my life. Uh, is everything that we're talking about here is in my divine feminine empowerment certification program, like everything, even creating rituals and altars and like ancestral altars and everything. Yeah,
Oh my
because
god.
it's been this combination, right? It's so beautiful when we follow these, like, I call them breadcrumbs or however, like back to ourselves, where I'm like, I don't know why I'm drawn to this like shaman class, but I am. Like, and then, going for, three trainings on shamanism to become a master shaman. And all of this was part of it, right? How do I create a safe space for
Mm.
ancestral healing and bringing that in, and just an altar in general? And how do you actually set that up to honor all of it? And going back into the generational, like, what do I want to say, healing through like meditation, specific shamanic meditations and dances, and
Mm.
yeah, calling upon like different spirit guides and stuff. So So there's so many different ways to go through this healing, and we all have our own journey. And starting with just this awareness, right? Like
Mhm.
that's where we started when we were talking. When you were just saying, it's just like, yeah, so this whole experience that you had of just like, oh, let's remember the gifts, and you're like, must be fucking nice to have some gifts, right? And to
No,
recognize
for real.
cognitively, like, yes, I know
Totally.
this happens, and I haven't experienced it yet.
Yeah.
Um, so there's again, different journeys of just mine was very somatic as far as just the breath that I was focusing in on and the music and
Mhm.
just the way that I was guided into my journey. I have some women who journey through ayahuasca. I have some who journey through cacao ceremonies and different ways to really tap into what we already know spiritually. Because when
Yeah.
we get sciencey on this, which is, again, all part of my program too, is that I pull in the science, like what is actually happening physiologically, neurochemically, like within our body, what is happening, and really looking at these changes of like when we look at quantum physics. Okay, there's no timeline. There's no timeline. Everything exists. Like everything exists right here, right now. It's just at different energetic frequencies. So the past, the future, different energetic frequencies. So that's how we get to heal past and that's how we have the hand that rests on our chest. That's how we have our ancestors come forward as I'm staring at the Niagara River. That is how, like, we have all of these signs. If you ever want to read a book about just like different signs to look, that's what it's called. It's called signs. Okay. And it's all about just like, from the experience of, I mean, I don't think it's quantum physics that they talk about, but just like the spiritual realm and aspect.
Mm.
So yeah, and to know that like we're not alone in this journey.
Mhm.
To know how to tap into that, to fully understand, like you said too, like there's this responsibility. And I remember early on in my journey, probably I would dare to say almost 10 years ago. I remember being like, why is it my fucking responsibility to heal everyone, to heal the family? Like, this is bullshit. My mom should be doing this, or like, why can't this? Well, they weren't called. That's not their life purpose. That's not their mission
Right.
in this lifetime. Not that I'm supposed to know. Maybe it is, but it's again, that's not for me to know. I'm doing this so that I can have a more fulfilling life and fulfill my dreams, my purpose, my vision. To not carry on these patterns. Am I creating new patterns? Yes. Do I hope that they're maybe, a little less hurtful than the ones that were passed on to me? I hope so. Do I know for sure? No, just like our ancestors didn't, right? They were doing, everybody
Mhm.
really doing the best they can. Um,
Yeah.
and I always say, I'm like, until you know better, and then you can do better. And then some people still don't choose that. But again, that's not for us to choose for them. If you want to create a different pattern in your life, truly, and not out of the simple fact of like, and I want to identify this too, of just like, well, I know what not to do because of my family, right? And that moves us in a place of resentment and anger and hurt and pain. So we're just creating, that's something I do know because I've gone through it and experienced it, of just like, I know that just creates more pain and more hurtful patterns for my kids.
Right.
So yeah, if I truly want to change the trajectory of my kids' lives, of my life, of maybe my sister's lives, of,
Mhm.
it ripples out, right? Of like
Mhm.
generations past, then it's me, right? I'm doing the energetic work. So you can do this through like a variety. I feel like that's where I sort of started, is like, well, how do we even do this? Somatic
Mhm.
experiences, breath work, Reiki. There's that healing, ancestral altars, where again, it's important to be guided on how to do these things,
Right.
because there are so many different like setups and like things that you call in and invoke. And I know I couldn't have done it alone.
Yeah.
And again, it's just like we are all on this journey together, and somebody's just a little further than me, and I'm looking to them to say, okay, now how do I do this? So Yeah, a lot of different ways to really tap into this type of healing. If you are like looking to explore, it's like look for those Reiki practitioners, look for the shamans in your area. And there's so many different, you don't have to travel to, different areas or anything like that. This is really becoming more mainstream, truly, that I see, even where more people are learning about shamanism and Native American rituals, that really bring us back to ancestral healing and like celebration, truly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the accessibility. What just came to mind as you were saying that is like, so I think like I have the luxury, obviously, like I'm in Atlanta, I have access to so much. I can type in a Google search and there will be something available to me, right? Like I love that. I'm so grateful for that. You might be in an area where you're looking for something and the accessibility is not there. Um, I want to encourage you to look at what, if you are feeling the tug of like, I want to understand more, I want to learn more, I want to grow more, I want to heal more, you might also be called to bring some of that healing to your community where you might have to travel to go get some training or exposure to it. But then you might be the one, if you see a need, you might be the one, maybe not. I don't know. I just encourage you to be open to it, right? Like, because there's no limit to
Mm-hmm.
what the healing and the gifts that come from this type of work and awareness and um, yeah, I just, there's so many potential offerings
Mm-hmm.
that can come from
Well,
it.
and now virtually too. It's you in person, virtually. I still meet with my energy psychotherapist. She's in Georgia. I'm in New York. And we are able to do this virtually. Um,
Well, it's like you said, energy is not about time or space. So like that's why Reiki works distance wise. Like that's why because it's energy. There is no space. There is no time.
Exactly. So yeah, we are entering a really cool realm of, this era where we are able to dive back into those like ancestral practices. This is a really really powerful time, especially for the divine feminine, and the divine masculine, right? Both of those energetic forces are necessary.
Mm-hmm.
uh, and like this is a really powerful time to just get back to our roots. It's calling, it is needed, it is necessary, for us to be able to move forward in a drastically different way. And that's one thing I think every single person can say is that like shit's gotta change, right? Like so this is a
No doubt.
way, for those things to change and for it to start from within and with us and then see the ripple effect, because it truly does happen. It's pretty friggin' wild. So I invite you to explore. And if you have any
Mm-hmm.
other questions, please reach out to us. You can, again, you can reach out to me. I have gone through a lot of these practices and have taught them and now teaching them. And, from everything from like certified breath work to master shaman, to I've been teaching meditation and mindfulness for almost 15 years. So, this is really, and again, it's like all of these little steps that I've taken where I'm like, I'm not sure why I'm doing this. I'm just like, I'm intrigued by it. It changed my life, so I want to know more about it. Um, and then it all just fell into, this beautiful avenue of offering a certification with all of it being part of it. So yeah, so super excited, super excited. So if you have any questions about the Divine Feminine Certification program, I would love for you to reach out to me. And yeah, if you need any connections, like in Atlanta, Katie's been diving into all of this. She's a Reiki master, diving into all of the energetic healing for like years and years and years. You've been exploring this. So
Yeah.
and certified. So I'm so excited. So yeah, any questions, please, please, please. And we have a plethora of just like connections, just virtually too, of the people that we know, because we
Uh-huh.
definitely surround ourselves with other healers. Um, So yeah,
Yeah.
we would love to hear from you, to connect you, to support you through anything that you might be going through. So until next time, thank you, thank you, thank you for spending your time with us here on Sick Crooked Talk Straight, where we are talking about lineage, liberation, and the hows, the whys, the whats. And really encourage you to dive into your own healing, especially during this beautiful time of winter, which is all about reflection. So,
Hmm.
perfect timing for this to happen, and make sure that you spend some reflection time for yourself. So, until next time, please let your legacy shine, live your purpose. Sending so much love and light your way. Mwah.
Mwah.